The night stretched like velvet across the forest, the trees whispering secrets only the wind could understand. Silver light from the full moon spilled over the clearing, illuminating the woman standing alone at its edge. Her dark hair cascaded like a shadow against her pale skin, eyes shimmering with a mixture of fear, longing, and something deeper, something she barely understood herself. She drew in a shaky breath, the cool air carrying the scent of pine and something wilder, more primal. The moon tugged at her, a silent command vibrating through her veins, stirring memories she had buried, promises she had never made. Every nerve in her body hummed with anticipation, with a fear she could not name. No one knew what she was, no one except the shadows, the wind, and the one who would one day claim her. Her secret lineage, hidden from the world and fiercely guarded even from herself, pulsed beneath her skin. A gift, a curse, a destiny she had yet to embrace. Her gaze drifted upward to the silver disk hanging high in the night sky. "The moon knows," she whispered, almost afraid to hear the answer. And in that moment she felt it, the undeniable pull toward a path she could not avoid, toward a force strong enough to change everything she had ever believed about herself, about love, about power. A rustle behind her made her body tense. Shadows twisted and danced at the edge of the forest, teasing the danger that lingered closer than she imagined. Somewhere in the distance, a low growl rumbled, echoing against the trees. She knew it was him. The Alpha, her fate, and though she had not yet met him, though she would have to hide from him, protect herself from his attention, a single truth burned hotter than any fear. She was already bound to him, whether she wanted to admit it or not. The night was silent again, but the moon watched, knowing every heartbeat, every secret, every lie she had woven around herself. And when the time came, it would no longer matter who she pretended to be. The Alpha would claim her, whether she was ready or not. Her chest tightened with both fear and anticipation, the forest seeming to lean in closer, as if even the world itself was holding its breath. The journey had begun. The pack hall shimmered with lantern light, casting long shadows across polished wood and stone. Music floated through the air, a low hum of drums and stringed instruments, celebrating unity, strength, and lineage. Yet for her, the celebration felt like a cage. Every laugh and whisper struck against her chest like a blade. She forced a smile, a mask she had perfected over years of hiding. The man she was meant to love danced near her, one of the younger pack members, eager, naive, unaware that she was playing a role to protect herself. Her hand brushed against his, and she murmured a polite laugh, but her eyes betrayed her. Across the room he stood, the Alpha, tall, impossibly commanding, with eyes that seemed to pierce through flesh and soul alike. He watched the gathering with the detachment of a predator, but she knew, oh, she knew, that he had noticed her. Not the mask, not the pretense, but her. Her heart betrayed her with each glance in his direction, and her pulse thudded against her ribs as if warning her to run. But she could not. She had to endure the night to maintain the illusion, to keep the secret that could destroy her if revealed. The Alpha's gaze lingered on her longer than any polite acknowledgement should. A flicker of something, anger, confusion, desire, sparked in his amber eyes, and she felt it like a hand on her spine, electrifying and dangerous. But she could not approach him, she must not. The moment came when she was expected to announce her feigned affection, to pledge her admiration publicly. Her chest burned, shame prickling her skin like fire. She forced her words, soft and deliberate, to the man at her side. I am grateful for your kindness," she said, keeping her gaze averted, pretending her heart was elsewhere. Laughter and congratulations filled the hall, but the sting of humiliation hit her hard. Her cheeks flamed, and for a fleeting second, she wished she could disappear into the shadows that lined the edges of the room. The Alpha's gaze remained on her, unbroken, a storm restrained behind calm eyes. He did not step forward, he did not speak, but the tension was palpable, an invisible thread tying them together, even as she pretended to love another. Her secret burned hotter in her chest with every passing moment, every stolen glance. As the night pressed on, whispers of jealousy and curiosity swirled around her. Some sensed the distance between her and the man she feigned to care for. Others noticed the electric tension that sparked whenever the Alpha's eyes met hers. She could feel the unspoken questions in the air, the subtle intrigue of everyone in the room. And when the music swelled and the crowd cheered, she caught the Alpha's look once more, intense, unyielding, and impossibly knowing. It promised something dangerous, something forbidden, something inevitable. Her chest tightened with both fear and longing. The rejection she had just endured was not the end. No, the Alpha's eyes told her clearly the story was far from over. The night outside the pack hall was colder, darker, the wind carrying the scent of wet earth and pine. She had slipped away from the crowded celebration, desperate for a moment of solitude, a chance to breathe without the weight of forced smiles and whispered gossip. But the forest, familiar as it was, held no comfort tonight. A rustle of leaves and the snap of a branch underfoot made her freeze. Her heartbeat spiked, quick, uneven, and she instinctively reached for the dagger concealed in her sash. But it wasn't an animal. It was him, Cadden, the rival, the one she had hoped to avoid, whose claim to dominance within the pack's hierarchy was matched only by his relentless arrogance. He stepped into the moonlight, smirking, eyes gleaming with triumph. "I thought I might find you alone," he drawled, voice smooth but dangerous. "We can skip the formalities inside. You know what I want." Her pulse leapt in both fear and irritation. She had already played her part tonight, pretending to care for another, but Cadden refused to respect even that. His presence was a challenge, a provocation, a declaration. "You'll get nothing from me," she said, trying to keep her voice steady, though every instinct screamed danger. Cadden's smirk widened, almost mocking. "You think the Alpha's disinterest means you're free? No, little shadow. The rules don't protect you from me." The hair on the back of her neck prickled. She could sense his hunger, the possessive, predatory nature that made him dangerous. Her hands clenched at her sides, but she dared not show fear. Not here, not now. From the corner of her eye, she felt it. A shift in the air, subtle but undeniable, the Alpha. He appeared almost silently, a shadow among the trees, eyes fixed on the scene with a tension that could be cut with a knife. He didn't step forward, didn't speak, but his presence radiated a warning. Cadden's bravado faltered for a fraction of a second. He sensed the Alpha's watchful gaze, felt the silent claim radiating like heat through the air. And yet, he didn't leave. "You're bold." The Alpha's voice finally broke through, low and steady, resonating in her chest. "Too bold? Step away from her, Cadden." The rival stiffened, jaw tightening, and a dangerous glint sparked in his eyes. "And what if I don't?" In that instant, the forest seemed to shrink around them. The Alpha's aura, calm but unyielding, pressed against Cadden like a physical force. The woman's chest tightened, her breath catching in her throat. She hadn't realized until now how much danger she truly was in, not just from Cadden, but from the raw, unspoken power radiating from the Alpha. Cadden hesitated, caught between defiance and survival. Finally, with a snarl, he backed off, disappearing into the shadows with a threat lingering in his words. "This isn't over. You'll see, little shadow." The Alpha didn't move toward her, didn't touch her, but his eyes softened, scanning her as if assuring her without words that she was safe. Her heart hammered, a wild rhythm of relief, fear, and something dangerously close to longing. She realized then, with a mix of awe and terror, that he was always watching, always aware. Even when he did not act, his presence claimed her. And though she had tried to hide from him, the forest seemed to whisper the truth she could no longer deny. The Alpha's attention was inevitable, relentless, and far from merciful. A shiver ran down her spine, half from the cold, half from the undeniable pull she felt toward him, and she knew the night had only just begun. The forest seemed alive tonight, whispering secrets only she could hear. The moon hung low, painting the ground in silver, casting shadows that danced around her like restless spirits. She walked carefully, each step intentional, trying to shake the tension from earlier. Yet something deeper tugged at her, a nagging, insistent pull toward the truth she had buried for so long. Her fingers brushed against the rough bark of an ancient oak and memories stirred, fragments of her childhood, moments she had long tried to forget. Strange sensations pulsed beneath her skin whenever the full moon appeared, and tonight they were stronger than ever. Her heartbeat quickened, synchronized with a rhythm she did not fully understand. A glint in the underbrush caught her eye, something unnatural, a small, ornate medallion half, buried in the dirt, engraved with symbols she had never seen before. Kneeling, she brushed the soil away and lifted it. Cold metal pressed against her palm, and the hairs on her arms rose. The medallion thrummed, alive with an energy she couldn't ignore, and as she held it, a flash of memory tore through her mind, a vision of ancestors, of power, of a lineage that was hers yet hidden. Faces she had never known, voices whispering warnings, and an unmistakable bond linking her to the Alpha, the one she had spent the evening avoiding, the one whose gaze had claimed her without a single touch. Her breath hitched. This is why I must be careful, she thought, clutching the medallion to her chest. Her secret was more dangerous than she realized. If Cadden, or anyone else, discovered it, she would be exposed, vulnerable, powerless. And yet, a strange thrill surged through her, a connection to something greater than herself, something that made her feel alive in ways fear alone could not describe. The rustling of leaves snapped her back to the present. She wasn't alone, and instinctively she felt eyes on her, the Alpha's. He emerged from the shadows, moving silently, his presence commanding yet somehow gentle. His gaze landed on the medallion, lingering, sharp and intense. "You found it," he said, voice low, edged with curiosity and something more, something unspoken that made her pulse flutter. I don't know what it means," she admitted, trying to keep her voice steady though her hands trembled. He stepped closer, careful not to touch, but close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him, like sunlight through the cold night. "It means you are more than you think, stronger than anyone knows, and the pack, they will feel it too, once they realize what you carry." Her chest tightened at his words, both with fear and the undeniable pull of longing. Every instinct told her to retreat, to hide, to deny the bond she knew was forming between them. But the medallion pulsed in her palm, and she realized that the secret she had protected for so long was awakening, demanding recognition, demanding she face the truth of who she was. "And you," she whispered, almost afraid to speak it aloud, you already know." He didn't answer with words. His gaze alone confirmed it, a silent promise and a warning intertwined. The forest seemed to hold its breath with them, as if the very world knew the balance had shifted. Her secret bloodline was no longer just hers. It was part of a story far larger than she had ever imagined, a story that tied her inexorably to him, the Alpha who would claim her whether she was ready or not. A cold wind rustled the trees, and in that shiver, she felt both fear and anticipation. Her journey into the shadows of her hidden lineage had begun, and there was no turning back. The night air was thick with tension, carrying the scent of pine, wet earth, and the faint metallic tang of anticipation. The pack's ceremonial grounds were alive with movement, wolves pacing restlessly, the murmurs of pack members blending with the crackle of the bonfire. But she barely noticed. Her thoughts were consumed with the memory of the medallion, its pulse still thrumming against her chest, and the Alpha's presence lingering in her mind like a shadow she could neither escape nor resist. She walked among the gathered pack members, head held high, forcing herself to smile, to act as if nothing had shifted. But every glance toward the Alpha sent a ripple through her, a jolt of heat that left her trembling inside. He wasn't always near, but she could feel him, watching, observing, always aware of where she was, how she moved, how she breathed, and then he appeared. As though drawn by some silent magnet, the Alpha moved through the crowd with that effortless dominance that made everyone, including her, instinctively step back. But instead of claiming her openly, he positioned himself just out of reach, his gaze like fire tracing every line of her body. A low, predatory growl rumbled in his chest, not audible to the others, but she felt it in her bones. Her breath hitched. The space between them crackled with tension, unspoken, undeniable. She longed to step closer, to feel the warmth of him, the weight of his claim, but years of secrecy and fear held her back. "You shouldn't walk alone," he murmured, voice low, carrying authority and a subtle edge of something intimate that made her pulse quicken. His words brushed against her like a silk glove, both warning and invitation. "I'm fine," she replied, trying to mask the tremor in her voice. Yet her eyes betrayed her, darting away to avoid the intensity of his stare. He moved slightly closer, but stopped, letting the space between them burn with electricity. "Are you?" His words were soft, yet heavy with meaning, laden with the unspoken. The entire forest seemed to tighten around them, a cocoon of silver moonlight and hushed whispers. She swallowed, feeling the heat in her chest spread like wildfire. Her mind screamed caution, but her body betrayed her, leaning unconsciously toward him, drawn to the alpha's aura of dominance and the dangerous promise that lingered in his every movement. And then, almost as if the universe conspired against her, a branch snapped underfoot. Both of them turned sharply, alert. Danger, real or imagined, flickered in her mind, yet the moment of tension had shifted something irrevocable. Their shared glance lingered longer than it should, fingers twitching as though they wanted to reach for one another but dared not. Her heart pounded in her chest, echoing in her ears. The alpha's eyes softened for the briefest instant, and she felt it. A connection, raw and unspoken, a warning and a promise that something more was coming. Something she couldn't resist, no matter how fiercely she tried. The forest around them breathed in tandem, shadows curling, the moonlight glowing brighter, illuminating every tiny detail. The flush of her cheeks, the subtle tremor in her hands, the tension in his jaw. And for a heartbeat, it was just the two of them, bound by something they neither wanted to admit nor fully understand. The moment passed, but its memory lingered like smoke in the air. She felt it deep within her bones. The alpha watched always, and the slow burn of attraction, danger, and forbidden desire was only beginning. Moonlight filtered through the dense canopy, casting silvery streaks across the forest floor. She moved cautiously, the crunch of leaves underfoot the only sound in the stillness. The night was her refuge, yet it offered no true escape from the storm raging inside her. Every nerve felt heightened, alive with the tension of forbidden desire and the fear of exposure. Caden's presence earlier lingered like a dark perfume, a reminder that the forest was not a safe place. He would not give up so easily. She knew his arrogance, his hunger to claim her for himself. But even as the thought made her pulse spike, another presence made her heart clench in a way she could neither name nor resist. The alpha, silent, powerful, unseen, yet undeniably there. She could feel the weight of him pressing against the edges of her awareness. Each step she took seemed measured, as if he could anticipate them all. His restraint was maddening, almost cruel. He wanted her, she could sense it, yet he held back, testing her, watching her, claiming her without touch or words. She stopped beside a large oak, leaning against its rough bark for support. Her hands trembled slightly as she drew in a deep breath, trying to center herself. Then, movement in the shadows caught her attention. "Caden, again, you can't keep hiding from me," he whispered, stepping closer, the moonlight glinting off his sharp features. "You belong to someone, yes, but not him. You belong to me, and I will prove it." Her stomach twisted with disgust and fear. "You'll get nothing from me," she said, voice stronger than she felt, but her heart raced, betraying her with every pulse. Caden smirked, leaning dangerously close. "We'll see," he murmured, and she caught the faintest whiff of his cologne. Masculine, intoxicating, suffocating. Before she could react, a presence materialized behind him. The alpha, Caden froze, tension radiating from him as though the air itself had thickened. The alpha did not touch her, did not even speak immediately. He simply watched, a predator assessing its prey, the power and dominance radiating from him almost visible. "You will step away." The alpha's voice finally broke through low, controlled and lethal. Now, Caden's defiance wavered, a flicker of fear betraying him. He snarled but finally backed away, disappearing into the forest with a muttered threat. Alone again, she exhaled shakily, leaning against the tree. Her chest still burned from fear, from the proximity of danger, and from the undeniable pull she felt toward the Alpha. The forest was quiet once more, but her mind was ablaze with tension, desire, and the weight of forbidden attraction. The Alpha stepped from the shadows, slow, deliberate, each movement commanding attention. He stopped a heartbeat away, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him, yet far enough that the denial he practiced made her ache. "You should not tempt yourself," he murmured, his voice a velvet warning. I'm trying not to," she whispered, though her gaze betrayed her defiance. He didn't move closer, but the intensity of his stare seared her skin, igniting something deep and dangerous. She felt the pull, the temptation to surrender, to reach for him, to let the night sweep her away. Yet she forced herself to step back, to deny him, deny herself, even as every fiber of her being screamed otherwise. The forest seemed to hold its breath with them, a silent witness to the tension, the longing, and the unspoken promise that neither could deny. And as she turned away, trying to flee the temptation, she knew one truth: the Alpha's presence was inevitable. The desire he stirred was impossible to resist, and the denial could not last forever. The morning fog clung to the forest like a shroud, tendrils curling around ancient oaks and moss-covered stones. She moved carefully along the hidden path, senses alert, heart still pounding from the previous night's encounters. The memory of Cadden's predatory presence lingered, but a new unease gnawed at her, the kind that whispered of shadows far deeper than rivals or pack politics. She reached the clearing where an old ally had promised to meet her, tension twisted in her gut. He was known for loyalty, but secrets in this pack had teeth, and even the most trustworthy could betray. "You're late," a low voice rumbled from the shadows. She flinched, recognizing the figure of Kale, a pack member whose allegiance was rarely questioned. But tonight his eyes held something different, a flicker of warning, of fear. He stepped forward, lowering his hood. "Something is wrong," he said, voice edged with urgency. "You need to listen carefully. It's not just Cadden you need to fear. There's a curse, one that threatens not only you, but the Alpha's control over the pack." Her chest tightened. A curse, the words felt unreal, yet the gravity in his eyes left no room for doubt. "What kind of curse?" she asked, though fear trembled in her tone. Kale glanced around nervously, as if the trees themselves might be listening. "I cannot speak fully here, but it's tied to your bloodline, your heritage, the one you've hidden. If the wrong eyes discover it, if the rival or enemies of the pack learn the truth, the consequences could be catastrophic." A shiver ran down her spine. She clutched the medallion beneath her tunic, feeling its heartbeat sync with her own. Every instinct screamed danger, but every thought reminded her that the Alpha, her Alpha, was entangled in this, bound to her in ways she could barely understand. Kale's voice dropped to a whisper. "Trust is fragile, even within the pack. You cannot be certain who will protect you and who will betray. You must be vigilant or everything could be lost." Before she could ask more, movement in the underbrush drew their attention. Shadows shifted, and her breath caught in her throat. Someone, or something, was watching, hidden, patient. She felt the icy touch of eyes on her back, calculating, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The forest seemed to tighten around them. She realized the danger was closer than she had imagined. Her heart thudded violently as she glanced toward Kale, but he could do nothing against what approached. And then, with a soft, almost imperceptible sound, the figure stepped forward. Recognition hit her like a blade. It was Cadden, grinning, confident, knowing that secrets had been unearthed, that fear had been planted. "You thought you could hide," he sneered, "but the bloodline, the curse, it will be yours to bear, and no one can protect you, not even him." Her eyes widened. Her secret, the very thing she had fought to protect, was no longer safe. Panic surged, but beneath it burned a fierce resolve. She would not let him, or anyone, control her fate, not while the Alpha's eyes were out there, watching, protective, untouchable. Kale placed a hand on her shoulder, steadying her. "Be ready," he murmured. "Danger has found you, and it won't wait for consent." The forest seemed to close in, shadows curling like living things. She could feel the weight of her secret, the pulse of the curse, and the unrelenting presence of the Alpha silent, watching, waiting. And in that moment, she understood the truth. The danger was no longer distant, and the stakes had risen, higher than ever. The blood moon rose, a blazing red disk hanging low in the night sky, spilling its eerie light across the forest. Shadows twisted unnaturally, and the air pulsed with a power that made her knees weak and her senses tingle. She could feel it, the shift, the awakening, the pulse of something she had long suppressed, a bond she had denied even to herself. The Alpha was there, standing at the edge of the clearing, his figure a silhouette of raw strength and restrained power. His gaze locked onto hers, unwavering, magnetic, drawing her forward even as caution screamed in her mind. The world around them seemed to dissolve. Only the forest, the moon, and the electricity between them remained. A sudden thrum of energy passed between them, unseen yet undeniable, like a current of heat running straight from her chest into his. Her breath caught, and she staggered slightly, though he moved instantly to steady her without touching. The connection was psychic, intimate, impossible to ignore. Every emotion, every thought, every hidden desire surged between them unfiltered. He feels it too, she realized, heart-hammering. Every longing, every restraint, every moment of hidden yearning was mirrored in him. The Alpha's amber eyes softened in recognition, and yet there was something wilder there too, dangerous, consuming. "You feel it?" he murmured, voice low, rough, vibrating through the air and deep into her chest. "This bond, it's not just desire, it's inevitable. You cannot hide from it. I don't understand," she whispered, trembling as the force between them intensified. She felt her heartbeat racing, synchronized with his, as if the moon itself had stitched their fates together. Every instinct screamed warning, every nerve begged for surrender, yet fear still gripped her. To give in would be to reveal herself completely, and she wasn't ready, but the bond demanded recognition. Her thoughts, her emotions, her very essence reached out to him, and he responded, matching them with an intensity that stole her breath. She felt his restraint, the struggle to maintain control even as the connection flared hotter, unyielding. A sudden rustle in the trees shattered the fragile cocoon of intimacy. Danger lurked, a reminder that the world outside their connection had not vanished. But even the threat, distant as it was, couldn't sever the psychic thread that tethered them. Her pulse surged with conflicting emotions, fear, desire, longing, and the undeniable certainty that they were bound, whether the pack, the rivals, or the forest itself approved. The Alpha stepped closer, but still did not touch her. His control, a tangible force that made the ache of their bond all the more unbearable. "This bond," he said, voice vibrating with both warning and hunger, "it will reveal everything. Our feelings, our secrets. We cannot hide it. Not from each other, not from them." She trembled, aware that each word carried the weight of prophecy, destiny, and desire. The psychic connection was no longer just a whisper. It was a roar, an undeniable confirmation that their fates were intertwined, that the attraction, the longing, the forbidden fire between them could not be ignored. And then, like a spark in dry tinder, a distant howl shattered the night, sharp and urgent. Danger approached, drawn by the blood moon's power and the bond now fully awakened. The Alpha's protective instincts flared, and she felt it, the duality of him, predator and guardian, claim and restraint. Their eyes locked, unspoken words burning between them, and she realized with both awe and terror that nothing, neither rival nor curse could break what had begun. Their hearts, their souls, their very essence had acknowledged each other. The forbidden bond had awakened, and with it, a love as dangerous as it was inevitable. The forest seemed to hold its breath as they stood, tethered by fate and psychic fire, aware that lurking enemies sensed the shift and that the night's trials were far from over. The pack hall, usually a sanctuary of unity and loyalty, felt suffocating tonight. Shadows clung to the corners like whispers, and even the familiar warmth of the fire offered little comfort. She moved cautiously, every step deliberate, heart still reverberating from the bond that had awakened under the blood moon. But a new unease pressed against her chest, heavier than any fear she had known. She barely noticed the subtle glances from pack members, their murmurs brushing against her like cold winds. Someone knew. Someone had seen the bond, or worse, the medallion that marked her lineage. Panic coiled in her stomach. Then she heard it, a laugh too familiar, too confident. She turned sharply and froze, her eyes locked onto Leora, one of the pack members she had trusted the most. Leora's smirk, casual yet sharp, cut through the air like a blade. In her hand, gleaming under the torchlight, was a small object, a medallion identical to the one she had found in the forest. "You really think secrets last long in this pack?" Leora's voice was silk and venom intertwined. "Poor thing, some of us don't need to hunt for power. Some of us just take it from those too naive to guard it." Her chest tightened. Betrayal, raw and bitter, surged through her. Every instinct screamed to lash out, to demand answers, but fear rooted her to the spot. How long had Leora known? How much had she revealed to Cadden? To anyone, the thought made her stomach twist. The Alpha appeared as though summoned by her tension, silent and commanding, stepping into the room with a presence that immediately drew attention. His gaze swept across the hall, then locked onto hers, eyes blazing with a mixture of fury, concern, and unspoken warning. He had sensed it, she realized. He had known before she did. "You betrayed her." His voice rumbled, low and dangerous, cutting through the chatter like thunder. Every ear turned toward him. Leora raised her chin, unafraid, almost mocking. "I simply ensured the balance of power. She can't have what she can't control." The Alpha's muscles tensed visibly, and the room seemed to shrink under his aura of dominance. "Balance? You call betrayal balance?" His growl resonated through the hall, a warning that promised consequences beyond mere words. The heroine's heart pounded. Fear, anger, and despair collided within her. Her secret, her lineage, the fragile bond she had just begun to explore. All exposed, all threatened. She wanted to flee, to hide, but something stronger anchored her. The Alpha's eyes, amber and unyielding, promising protection, claiming her without touch. Leora's smirk faltered under that gaze, and for a moment triumph wavered, yet the damage had been done. Whispers spread like wildfire. The secret she had guarded for so long was now fragile, exposed to rivals and the pack alike. The Alpha took a step toward her, silent yet deliberate. She felt the heat of his presence, the promise of protection and vengeance entwined in every movement. His eyes, though filled with fury, softened slightly as they met hers. "I've got you," they seemed to say, and even through fear and betrayal, her heart clenched with relief. But outside the protective orbit of his presence, danger lingered. Leora had struck first, but she would not be the last. Cadden was still out there, the curse still loomed, and the pack's fragile trust had fractured. The heroine realized with a sinking certainty that the trials were escalating, and the cost of her secrets might be more than she could bear. And as the Alpha's gaze never left her, a silent promise echoed through the tension. Filled hall, he would claim her, protect her, and exact vengeance, no matter the consequences. Rain lashed the forest, a relentless curtain of silver that blurred the world into shadows and motion. Thunder rolled overhead, shaking the canopy, shaking her resolve. She ran, boots slipping in the mud, heart hammering in rhythm with the storm. The scent of wet earth mixed with something sharper, danger, blood, the unmistakable tang of Cadden's arrogance. He waited at the clearing's edge, the storm framing him like a dark silhouette of menace. His eyes gleamed with triumph and malice, daring her to approach, daring her to resist. "You can't hide forever." He called over the roar of the wind, voice sharp, dripping with malice. "Tonight, you belong to me." Her chest tightened, fear and determination warring within her. "I will never belong to you." She shouted back, struggling to keep her footing as lightning illuminated the scene in stark, white flashes. Then, through the blur of rain and shadows, he appeared, the Alpha, silent, commanding, moving like a force of nature through the storm. His amber eyes locked onto hers, searing through the chaos, and she felt it. The unyielding power, the claim, the promise that he would protect her, no matter the cost. "You will not touch her," he growled, low and lethal. His presence shifted the air, charged it with energy, forcing even Cadden to falter. Cadden sneered but advanced, and the Alpha's form blurred with supernatural speed. They collided in a violent clash, strength against strength, fury against arrogance. She watched, chest tight, heart threatening to burst. Every strike, every movement spoke of dominance, loyalty, and the unspoken bond she shared with him. The rain soaked her, plastering hair to her face, but she barely felt it. Her focus was on the Alpha, on the way his every move protected her even in the chaos. A tendril of fear twisted in her gut. What if he lost? What if she lost him? Cadden lunged, and instinctively she dove aside, mud splattering against her clothes. The Alpha's growl echoed in the storm, and then he was between them, deflecting blows with precision, his eyes never leaving hers. She could feel the heat of him even through the torrential downpour, the protective energy radiating from him, anchoring her even as chaos raged around them. "You cannot fight destiny, Cadden." The Alpha spat, voice vibrating with lethal authority. "She is mine." The words struck her heart with a ferocity that made it ache. She wanted to move, to flee into his arms, but mud and rain held her captive. All she could do was watch as the battle unfolded, as the Alpha's power and dominance became unmistakable, undeniable. Cadden faltered, his arrogance cracking under the weight of the Alpha's fury. With a final, decisive strike, the rival was thrown back, his threat momentarily silenced but not gone. The storm raged and the clearing was silent, save for the sound of rain and the Alpha's heavy breaths. He turned to her then, every drop of rain illuminated by lightning, every muscle taut and protective. No words were needed, his amber eyes spoke volumes. Danger had passed for now, and he would claim her, protect her, and never allow another to threaten her. Her chest rose and fell with relief, fear, and an undeniable ache of longing. She stepped closer, the rain soaking through her clothes, heart hammering, and for the first time, the Alpha allowed a fraction of intimacy to shine in his gaze, a silent, burning promise that she was his, and he would not let go. Yet even in the quiet aftermath, the distant rumble of thunder reminded her, danger was never truly gone, and in the shadows, Cadden's defeat was only temporary. The pack hall was alive with tension, every whisper, every glance carrying the weight of unspoken questions. She stood at the edge of the gathering, heart hammering, mud from the forest still clinging to her boots, rain, slick hair plastered to her skin. The events of the stormy confrontation still lingered, adrenaline coursing through her veins, but she knew tonight would not be like any other. Eyes swept the room, finally settling on him, the Alpha. His presence was impossible to ignore, dominant, commanding, a force that bent the air around him. Every pack member instinctively shifted back, sensing the surge of authority radiating from him. Even the fiercest rival, Cadden, was nowhere to be seen, but the threat of his shadow lingered. Without a word, the Alpha moved toward her, each step deliberate, radiating the unspoken truth. This was his claim, his choice, and the world would acknowledge it. Whispers rippled through the pack. Some gasped, others froze, and a few those who had doubted him lowered their heads in recognition. He stopped just a heartbeat away, close enough for her to feel the heat, the raw power, the protection he offered without touch. His amber eyes locked onto hers, burning with an intensity that made her knees weak. "You belong to me," he said, voice low, resonant, unyielding. Every syllable carried weight, authority, and a claim that could not be denied. Not by tradition, not by choice, but by bond, by fate, by the truth neither of us can escape. The words hit her like fire, setting her heart ablaze, her breath caught, and a shiver ran down her spine. The pack members' murmurs faded into a hum as all attention centered on them. The Alpha's dominance undeniable. I, she began, voice trembling, unsure if she could respond. Fear and longing warred within her, but beneath it all, she recognized the truth she had been denying. This was her place, her destiny, and the man before her was hers as much as she was his. His gaze softened, just for a fraction of a moment, revealing the vulnerability beneath the power, the longing beneath the control. It was an intimacy that stole her breath, even amidst the scrutiny of the pack. "I trust you," she whispered, finally finding the courage to meet his eyes fully, with everything. The Alpha's jaw tightened and he exhaled slowly, a low growl vibrating in his chest. then the pack knows," he said, voice sharper now, leaving no room for doubt. "She is mine. Every claim, every secret, every heartbeat belongs to me. Anyone who challenges it will answer to me." A ripple of shock and awe swept through the pack. Even those who had doubted, who had whispered about her hidden bloodline and the recent confrontations, understood. The Alpha had made his choice, and it was final. Her chest rose and fell, heart still racing, and she felt a strange mixture of relief, fear, and longing. The tension between them, the desire, the bond, the unspoken promise, was no longer hidden. He had claimed her, and the world could see it. Yet even as a measure of safety and belonging settled around her, the shadow of Cadden's threat lingered at the edges. The rival may have been defeated for now, but she knew deep in her bones that his claim, or vengeance, was not finished. The Alpha sensed it too, the subtle flicker of caution in his otherwise unyielding demeanor. But for now, she was his, publicly, undeniably, irrevocably, and as his gaze burned into hers, she understood one truth with absolute certainty. No one could threaten her while he stood beside her, and no force, no secret, could keep them apart. The forest clearing was alive with chaos, a storm of shadows and whispers pressing in from all sides. The rival pack had regrouped, Cadden at their helm, and their presence was suffocating. The Alpha stood at her side, a pillar of strength and dominance, yet she could see the tension in his jaw, the subtle tightening of his stance. The threat was real, closer than ever, and the danger radiated like a living thing. Her hands shook as she clutched the medallion, its pulse echoing her heartbeat. The bond with the Alpha flared within her chest, a blazing fire of psychic connection, awareness, and raw emotion. And then, something she had never consciously felt before surged through her. Power, it began as a warmth in her veins, spreading to her fingertips, then to her entire body. She gasped, unable to control it, feeling the force of her lineage awakening, demanding acknowledgement. The medallion thrummed, glowing faintly under the moonlight, a beacon of energy that seemed to respond to her fear, her anger, her determination. Cadden advanced, smirk curling his lips, his arrogance undiminished. "You think you can fight me?" he sneered, underestimating her utterly, but she no longer felt fear in the same way. The Alpha's presence anchored her, yes, but this power was hers alone. And as Cadden stepped closer, the forest seemed to respond, the shadows bending to her will, the wind circling around her like a protective shield. The medallion flared, and with a sharp intake of breath, she unleashed the force coursing through her. Energy radiated outward, knocking Cadden back, sending his followers staggering. Leaves, dirt, and the scent of ozone swirled in a protective vortex around her. She felt alive, untouchable, powerful in a way she had never allowed herself to imagine. The Alpha's eyes widened, not with fear, but with awe and pride. He stepped forward, seamlessly combining his own strength with hers, his protective aura amplifying hers. Together, they became unstoppable, a force of power and dominance that no rival could endure. Cadden screamed, rage and disbelief twisting his face as he stumbled backward, finally recognizing that the girl he had sought to claim was no longer defenseless, no longer prey. She was a force of her own, a queen in her own right, and the Alpha by her side was not a partner to control her, but an equal in strength, loyalty, and bond. As the last of the rivals fled, the forest settling once more into its natural rhythm, she felt the full weight of her secret revealed, not as a weakness but as power. Her bloodline, the heritage she had hidden and feared, was a gift that could protect her, her Alpha, and even the pack itself. The Alpha's hand found hers, fingers brushing with a warmth that stole her breath. His amber gaze met hers, no words needed. The bond, the power, the triumph of survival, and the declaration of their shared destiny was understood in that single, electric connection. "You've always been more than you knew," he murmured, voice low and intimate, vibrating through her chest, "and now, nothing can stop us, nothing." She exhaled, trembling, exhilarated, and for the first time, free from fear, from secrecy, from doubt. The hidden power was no longer a curse, it was hers, and it was theirs together, unbreakable, unstoppable. The forest seemed to hum around them, a silent witness to the awakening of her strength and the solidification of the bond that no rival, no curse, and no shadow could ever sever. The full moon hung high and luminous, its silver glow spilling across the clearing like a blessing. The forest was still, the echoes of past threats fading into memory. She stood beside the alpha, hands brushing, breaths mingling, hearts synchronized in a rhythm neither needed to explain. The trials, the betrayals, the dangers, all of it had led to this moment. The air was electric, charged with the remnants of the blood moon, the pulse of her awakened power, and the undeniable force of their bond. Every leaf, every branch seemed to shimmer under the moonlight, as if nature itself acknowledged the inevitability of their union. The alpha's amber eyes held hers, deep and unwavering, filled with the intensity of desire, protection, and devotion. "We are no longer defined by fear or secrecy," he murmured, voice low and resonant. "We are bound, by fate, by power, by each other." She reached out, letting her fingers entwine with his. The warmth of his touch, though subtle, ignited a fire that ran through her entire body. No words were needed. The connection between them spoke volumes, echoing through their bond, their hearts, and their very souls. The pack, now gathered at the edges of the clearing, watched in silent reverence. Some lowered their heads in respect, others whispered in awe. They understood that what stood before them was no ordinary pairing. This was the culmination of destiny, the weaving of strength, love, and loyalty into something unbreakable. She exhaled slowly, feeling the lingering power of her bloodline hum beneath her skin. No longer a secret, no longer a curse, it was a gift, one that would protect her, her alpha, and their shared future. The bond between them was now tangible, unshakable, a force that radiated beyond the clearing, beyond the forest, into the world itself. The alpha stepped closer, close enough that the warmth of his body brushed hers, his presence enveloping her completely. "You are mine," he whispered, not as a claim of possession, but as a declaration of devotion, "as I am yours, and together, nothing can touch us." She smiled, a mixture of relief, joy, and longing shining through. "Then we face the future together," she said softly, her voice trembling with emotion. "No fear, no rivals, just us." The moonlight seemed to intensify, bathing them in a silvery glow, highlighting the unity, the triumph, and the love that had been forged through trials, danger, and desire. The air thrummed with magic, the promise of their destiny, and the silent acknowledgement that they were truly fated, meant to be together, bonded not just by blood and power, but by the heart. He leaned down, closing the final distance between them, and for the first time, their lips met. A kiss that sealed the bond, the claim, and the promise of forever. It was tender, fierce, and consuming all at once, the culmination of longing, trust, and destiny realized. As they pulled apart, the forest seemed to exhale, the wind whispering through the trees, carrying with it the quiet chorus of approval from the natural world. Rivals defeated, secrets revealed, and the full moon shining above, their fates were sealed. Hand in hand, heart in heart, they stood beneath the celestial glow, free of fear, free of danger, free to love openly and fiercely. The night had witnessed their journey, and now, under the full moon, it bore witness to their eternity.